Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our class with some prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Tatsavitravarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto ma sadgamya tamso ma jyotirgamya mrityurma amritam gamya Om Sena Bhavatu Sena Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहे Om Shanti 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 Om. So we are going through Atriya Upanishad in this class. And let's do the Shanti part, which is in the beginning of this Upanishad also. Om Vang me manasihi pratishtata mana me vachi pratistham avir me edhi vedasya me anistaha shrutam me ma parhasi anen aditen ahoratran sandhami ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tatmam avatu tatvaktaram avatu mam avatu vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let's look at verse number 5. And this verse number 5 is the section 2 or chapter 2, section 1. Okay, so it's almost towards the end of this Upanishad. Just only a few more verses left. And if someone can put in the text the page number, that will help the other students also. So as we saw how this great Rishi is explaining how the baby is born in the womb of the mother. And now in this verse number 5, he's talking about a great Rishi, Vamdev. Rishi Vamdev, author of Mandal 4 of Rig Veda. And this Rishi Vamdev has been mentioned in Brihad Aryanyak Upanishad also. He's a son of Rishi Gautam. So when he was in the womb of his mother, that's what's mentioned over here. What he heard. Tat uktam rishinaha garbhenusan esham anu avedam aham devanam janimani vishwaha shatam mapura ayasi arakshan adha shayen jab saha nirdiyam iti garb ev etat shyanaha vam devaha evam uvacha. That means that uktam said, rishina, by a rishi, garbhe, in the womb. Nu means yet, sun means being, esham, these. Anu means anu avedam, knew well. Anu avedam. Aham I, deva nam, of the gods. Janimani, births. Vishwa, all. Shatam, 100. Ma means me, Puraha. Pura means like a city. Ayasi, made of iron. Arakshan, guarded, confined. Adha, below or down. Shayen, a hawk. Javsaha, with swiftness. Nirdiyam, I flew. Iti means that. Garab, in the womb. Ev means even. Etat, this. Shayanaha, lying. Vamdevaha, Vamdeva evam das uvach said. So this the Rishi of this Upanishad, he knew that students were not fully satisfied when he directly explained what he has been explaining. He must have seen the question in students' eyes. That's why he's expressing this Vedic sanction behind what he said. It's almost like an authority. Authority comes from the Vedas. And this is what he's saying. He says, as to this, it has been said by a rishi. And what is being said? Being yet in embryo, I knew well all the births of these gods. And we know these gods are devatas. In us also they reside. So he says, being yet in embryo, I knew well all the births of these gods. 100 iron city confined me down. And yet, like a hawk with swiftness, I flew. Thus spoke Vamdeva, even while lying in the womb. So this is a Vedic verse actually, belonging to Rig Veda, which reports the declaration which Rishi Vamdev made even while he was in the womb of his mother. We all know that Supreme can be realized, not just in any particular ashram, that means stage of life, but even in the prenatal existence. If one chooses to realize it, that freedom we have. The same thing, you remember? The Rishi Ashtavakra. He was in the womb of his mother and listening to the Upanishadic verses. Rishi Ashtavakra. Arjun's son also. The same thing. Then his son's son, Parikshit, in the womb, he saw that Lord Krishna is protecting him. So Vamdev came to experience the consciousness in him to be the self in him, even while in the womb. And to that extent, since he could witness the growth of the various sheaths of matter. That's what he's talking about. It's a city. I feel confined. And he says there's a development of the different senses. That's how the full person gets grown. With all the sheaths, all the senses. And he declares that I knew all the births of the gods. Whether it's a Agni Devta, Vayu Devta, Akash Devta, Prithvi Devta, Jal Devta. These are the gods in us too. But he says, I knew all the births of the gods. So he had his illumination. But he is complaining with his open heart that he started identifying with the different matter equipments. That's why he felt confined. He got confined in 100 iron city. The glory of Rishi Vamdev was that he did not keep identifying with the matter. He reached up to the capacity to rise above those identifications. He did not stayed victim to them. So that's why in his own words, he says in this mantra, I rose like a hawk each time. So each time I felt confined, but I rose like a hawk. He rose above the levels at which he had been confined. And he held himself aloft in the serener heights of tranquility and freedom. If you ever seen how hawk flies, the swiftness is there. One pointedness is there. And this is what we need to practice. It's a beautiful verse. Gives us a lot of direction for our own sadhana. Being yet in embryo, I knew well all the births of these gods, 100 iron city confined me down. And yet like a hawk with swiftness, I flew. Thus spoke Vamdev even while lying in the womb. स एवं विद्वान अस्मात् शरीर भेदात उधर्वहा उत्क्राम्ये अमुषिन स्वर्गे लोके सर्वान् कामान आप्तवः अमृतः संभवत यथा स्थानम गर्भिण्या. So means he, and over here he means Rishi Vamdev. Evam thus vidwan, having realized, asmat, from this, sharir bhedat, after the destruction of the body, udharvaha, upward, utkramye, having ascended, amushman, in this swarge, heaven, loke, world, sarvan, all, kaman, desires, aptavaha, having attained, amritaha, immortal, sambhavat, became, that means became immortal, yatha, as, that means as before, sathanam, take place, garbhinya, the pregnant women. I was told that last part is not in your books. So, yatha sathanam garbhinya. You can write it down. So that really means that pregnant women, please take seats now. He's calling them back into that hall, lecture hall. He, Rishi Vamdev, realizing this Atma, betook on his upward path. And after the destruction of the body, Sharir Bhed, attained all desires in the heavenly world and became immortal. Became immortal. See, it's like a repetition, sambhavat, sambhavat. And pregnant women, please take seats. So this section concludes here when sage Atriya indicates the crowning success of Rishi Vamdev. Almost like a biography of Rishi Vamdev. That Rishi, having realized the self, lost all his identifications with his body, mind and intellect. That is what Sharir Bhed means. The body doesn't have to die to reach there. Because after he was born, then all those mantras came out of him too. Okay, so Sharir Bhed means non-identification with these lower layers of our personality. So he was awakened to his divine consciousness, which is his immortal real nature. And not only his, ours too. Do we have that kind of a swiftness like a hawk? Do we have that kind of a one-pointedness? In our sadhana, this is what we need to cultivate. Can we not for few minutes detach ourselves from these lower layers? It is a very well-known statement of the Upanishads that knower of the self becomes the self. So almost like you can say the ocean realized waves become the ocean. They don't say we are separate waves from the ocean. They know that we are part of the ocean, so we are ocean. So the self-realized ego becomes the self. To the awakened, there's no more threats of the dream lion, as they say. Nothing can hurt them. Having realized the self, the individual no more can get back into his misconception or false identification. So that's why this mantra says, after the destruction of the body, experience of the infinite was here and now. That's why saintly people like that, technically, they are called Jivan Mukta. They are living in the body. They use their mind and the intellect. They are using all their upadhis. They are using the nature also. But while using, they know who they are. They never forget that. So this meaning is clear from the particular word which is used here, Sharir Bhed. Because when you really look at it, technically, Sharir Bhed means separation from the body. This separation does not mean death, just remember that. Because there's a lot of misunderstanding over this reality. We got to learn how to release ourselves from the feelings we create, the delusions which we have really accepted. So we have to pierce through them. A delusion can end only with the true knowledge. That's why knowledge is called light. Where light has come, darkness must quit. The minute sun is there, no darkness. No matter how dark the night was, the moment sun appears. So once realization has taken place, even if that saint carries a body, but that saint is perfectly free from his body idea. That saint will make use of the body and intellect, just like we use our vehicles, our cars, our houses for our use, but we don't identify ourselves with them. We know that vehicle is only has a purpose for transportation. A house has a purpose to give us a shelter. That's how that Jivan Mukta uses the body, whether it's a physical body or the subtle body too. This is the knowledge. So in this knowledge-born detachment, he experiences the infinite heaven. It's not that he has to go to some other planet to feel it, right here, right now. So that really means infinite heaven means experience of the absolute. It's like an satisfaction from all the desires. Desires got fulfilled. There's no more desires left. That is the fulfillment of the desires. So ignorance of the all full nature breeds desires calm. Because those calm, we know, they create thoughts. Calm. And the thoughts, they create karma in the outer field. So kamna, from kamna comes the desires, the karma also. So when knowledge has reached to remove the delusion, which is the avidya, the ignorance, there's no more delusion. There's no more material desires can manifest in this kind of a mind. So this mantra explains the condition of liberation when it says that he attains all desires in the heavenly world. Okay, so that doesn't mean that he goes into the heaven and fulfills the desires. All the desires have been fulfilled, whatever there were, it's a heaven for him. He feels the absolute oneness with God. So the heavenly world is all blissful experience of the infinite perfection according to this mantra. Because the mortality is the destiny of the finite. Something which is limited must die away. But the truth is all pervading. In the truth, there's no change. That's why it is immortal. There's no change. There's no birth. There's no death. It's immortal. So the realm of the self lies beyond the reach of the death. So here at the end of this section now, he's telling us this great wisdom. But at the same time, we got to remember that we all need to experience this. We got to do the sadhana in order to experience this. And then again, he requests those pregnant women to reassemble to listen to the last concluding section, which he has yet to declare. So here is the first verse of the next section. Ka ayam atma iti vayam upasamahe katrahas atma yen va pashyati yen va shrinoti yen va gandhan ajighrati yen va vacham vyakroti yen va swaducha aswaducha vijanati. Ka means who, ayam means this, atma, self, iti, that, vayam, we, upasamahe, worship. Katraha, which of the two? Sa means that, atma, self. Yen, by whom. Va means or. Pashyati, sees. Yen, by whom. Va means or. Shrinoti, hears. Yen, by whom. Va means or. Gandhan, fragrance, like a gandh. Ajighrati, smells. Yen, by whom. Va means or. Vacham, speech. Vyakaroti, utters. Yen, by whom. Va means or. Swadu, tasteful. Cha means and. Aswadu, not tasteful. Cha means and. Vijanati, knows. Who is this? Who is this one that we worship as this self? Which of the two is the self? Is it that by which one sees? Or that by which one hears? Or that by which one smells fragrance? Or that by which one utters the speech? or that by which one knows what is tasteful and what is not tasteful. In this section, we see the conclusion for the entire Upanishad. Because the main intention of the Upanishad was to explain the entire world of manifestations, and through them to indicate the unmanifested truth. All along the Upanishad, we've been provided with an understanding of how from the cosmic person or cosmic man, the individual entities rose up as a result of the thirst, the hungers in the Indriyas. And after explaining this, the process of the body's evolution, and we saw the example of the Rishi Vamdevs. So there is this Rishi Atreya got the attention of the students through the body, the Indriyas, and directly to the Supreme, and about which it was said that it entered within as the Gyan Shakti also. You remember in the beginning, Gyan Shakti through the cleft on the crown of the head. He explained that too. And at the same time, Rishi Vamdev's experience of the womb gave the students a practical illustration of the fact that we can end our present false notions and we can feel satisfied with a very healthy understanding of ourselves. But we know that Upanishads, they are in the form of question answer. Even if there's a little bit of doubt remains, the students are encouraged to ask. So now students started asking more direct questions to the teacher regarding the exact identity of the Atma. So over here in this section, we'll see teacher is trying to make them understand that the Atma working through its conditioning is called Sa-Upadhika. Okay? Meaning conditioned Atma. The Atma with the help of the Upadhis. Even though the absolute truth, the unconditioned self, which is called Nirupadhika. So as a student, we have these Upadhis, but we have to experience that we are in the real sense without the Upadhis. It's almost like a light in the bulb is Sa-Upadhik electricity. And the energy called electricity in its nature is Nirupadhik. So Jeev or the ego is the Sa-Upadhik self, while the pure self, which is experienced at the end of all our misunderstandings, is Nirupadhik self. So now in this mantra, the student and the teacher enter into a discussion actually. And the student is expressing his doubts in a minimum number of words. That is also, it gets emphasized again and again in our scriptures. In our Bhagavad Gita, we saw that too. Arjun's questions were direct and short. Lord Krishna's answers were with a full elaboration. The same thing over here. The teacher, the master of his own art, he can delve deeper into the more depth of that knowledge. And he tries to remove the fundamental doubts in the minds of the disciples. So the first question is, who is this one? God, I am. So the student is asking, who is or what exactly is this Atma or the self? God, I am. Because once we identify with the Atma, we can end all our misunderstandings. He has been telling them, you can reach the state of immortality, a state which Vamdev seems to have attained. So these students, they want to attain that too. So that's why I am. Who is this one? Then the second one, he says, Atma iti vayam upasamahe. We worship as the self. So this is the answer to that question. Atma iti vayam upasamahe. So as an answer to the direct and pointed question, the teacher explains that the self about which you are now inquiring is the reality. This is like if you go into the forests and feel the silence, and you can meditate upon in complete detachment from the world of the objects. There's a jungle inside us, but within that jungle, there's a silence. We need to worship. And worship is not what we generally understand by the term. Because our conception of worship is only that which we have gathered from the rituals we have seen all our life. By constant and faithful contemplation of the sacred truth, when we can raise ourselves to a perfect identification with the higher, that is worship. We can call it upasana also. So when the teacher replied that it is the self that they worship, it only means that their attempt of withdrawing themselves from the false, constantly meditating upon the real self. Because why do we want to detach from this body? Why do we want to detach from this objective world? Why do we want a calm mind, clear understanding, so that we can know who we are? And that's what Atma iti vayam upasame. We have forgotten who we are. So Rishi is telling his students, even the rituals, all the rituals we do, whether the great yajna we do, or an arti we do, or any kind of a dan pun we do, all of that is the purpose is to know ourselves. Purpose is to detach from the temporary so that we can know the permanent. Then the question comes, Katrahas Atma? Which of the two is the self? If the self is that on which all the masters meditate upon, then the question is asked by all the seekers as to which of the two selves. One seemingly imperceptible and experientiable as ego, and the other imperceptible but intellectually acceptable as the Atma. Is the real self upon which meditations are to be performed for the great, so that we can release our ignorance? This is the import of this question. Which self? The teacher in his answer indicates distinctly that the real self is that which is dynamic factor. The conscious principle, behind all the perceptions and activities. He's almost saying that the electricity is that which is behind the filament which makes the bulb gives out the light. Electricity is that which forces the equipment of the fan to move. Electricity is that which stirs the air in the room. So we all know that electricity is not light. It's not air. It's not heat. These are all only manifestations which are made possible when electricity gushes through these equipments. The same way the teacher tries to define the true self through the manifestations of the self. That factor behind our seeing, hearing, smelling, eating, and tasting. Because of that conscious principle, we become aware of the forms, the sounds, the smells, the different tastes. Something we like or something we don't like. Swadu or aswadu. We know only because of that conscious principle, which we call Atma, is unconditioned self. So let's look at the direct meaning of that verse, because there's a lot embedded in this verse. There are questions also and there are answers also in this mantra. Who is this one that we worship as this self? Which of the two is the self? Is it that by which one sees, or that by which one hears, or that by which one smells fragrance, or that by which one utters the speech, or that by which one knows what is tasteful and what is not tasteful? So there are only few verses left of this Upanishad. So let's stop it here. And next time we'll start with the verse number 2. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.